For years, video game companies have been looking for a way to resell you old games you've already bought.
That's right. Video game compilations are back. They're always back. They're always here.
And now we're going to tell you the top 5 of 2018.
Hot take.
Now, before we begin this episode, I want to talk about what a compilation is, because a lot of you out there may not exactly know what this list is going to be about. Now, we are not including stuff like the new Spyro Collection trilogy.
Right.
Yeah, because that's technically a remaster or a remake. There are things like that that exist. But what we're talking about is a collection of games that already exist and basically porting them and putting them in a big collection. And typically we don't see lists like this, but this year we got a lot of these things that came out.
And a lot of wonderful compilations. That's why I really wanted to sit down and do this year. So our number 5, you want to get into it?
Yeah, let's do this. Top 5. Number 5.
The SNK 40th Anniversary Collection.
Now, folks, there are a lot of compilation games that have been released recently, and they didn't make the list, but this one did.
Yes.
And both Adam and I have never actually played, I want to say, like 90% of the games on this collection.
Yeah, absolutely. Some I had just seen a little bit of. So this title for us was kind of an educational experience, and that's one of the things that I really love about this.
Yeah, use that word. Scare them before they get into playing
no,
the thing.
well, come on. If you love video games and you want to know a little bit more about them, there's so much here, and this compilation does a great job of being a museum piece for SNK before they became known as the Neo Geo people.
But
right?
it's fun, okay?
Yes,
that's the key part here. There are some games that are that are released on here that we actually saw. Frank Civaldi, who's one of the people that are involved in this, he mentioned on Twitter that there's a game on here called Bermuda Triangle, and Bermuda Triangle's been emulated on MAME for years and years and years, but nobody realized that the way the controller worked on there was that it was an arcade stick that you could twist and turn, and it basically gave you like 180 degrees of shooting on your character, so people weren't playing it the right way. So on this, what they've done is they've kind of done it in a way so that you can actually control the game with dual analog sticks.
The way it's supposed to be controlled. And
yeah.
That, in fact, that vertical shooter that Bermuda Triangle is, we don't see a lot of games like that. So it's important that we can go back and bring those games back to be played the way that they were supposed to be played.
Yeah.
People, again, as a historical piece, it's quite accurate. So,
yeah, like these games are really enjoyable to play, and this is the really fun part about this collection. A lot of people always think about, okay, is this the home release? Is this the arcade release? With this, not only do you get the arcade release, but in most instances, you'll also get the home release as well. In some cases, there's actually like just a home release and nothing else. But
you know what? I would even argue that some of the home releases are even better than the arcade releases in some circumstances, because a lot of those games were so hard.
Yeah, simplification of the controls.
Yeah.
With the arcade games, you have access to like basically the dip switches in the back of the arcade, so you can switch the difficulties.
Yeah.
You can actually just load a level straight up, and this is really cool too. This is going to sound so stupid, right? But this actually matters. Certain arcade games can have difficult parts that are very hard to get through.
That's right.
And there's actually just a watch mode in here, so you can just watch somebody have a perfect run of the game.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so you can, if you are having problems, you can get by, do whatever it is. Some standout titles besides Bermuda Triangle, I really loved.
Yeah.
There's also Psycho Soldier that has some. I guess it's one of the first games to have like real audio vocal performances, and there's a song in it that is just beautiful.
Okay, just 2 seconds. Have a listen right here.
Fighting fair to keep us free. She's just a little girl with power inside, burning bright. You better hide if you are bad. She'll catch you.
Okay, now that eventually she stopped singing.
Yeah.
But that is a part of the game. Emulation-wise, sometimes you don't actually hear that if you're to play that game on MAME and stuff. But here, all of that sound is all retained. I personally like the game. To understand, that's like one of the first times you were hearing voices in a video game or a theme song being sung by somebody in a game.
Yeah, that's right.
They could have gone for a different voice actress, or because she's definitely not a singer. But hey, that's a part of history, I guess.
So this is number 5 on our list, and I just want to say that your mileage may vary with these games. Some games play a little bit rougher than others, but again, we're going back into the 80s and stuff, and this is SNK before they were doing like Fatal Fury, Samurai Showdown, Metal Slug, and stuff. But again, a great sort of time capsule of what that company did.
And there's like a huge museum section to it where you can take a look at a whole bunch of advertisements and posters from the past. And like these are high quality images.
We're talking like pre-production stuff. You're looking at a bunch of documents and things for the cabinets.
Right, yeah.
It was super interesting.
You're not getting images that they just pulled off Google image search, right? Like these are actual real presented material that they found.
Super high res.
Yeah, and it's like, it's so cool to see this kind of stuff. If you happen to like one of the games on this collection, this is a great representation of those games.
Yep.
In fact, on the NES and Famicom, there was Chrysalis, which was this really cool RPG that you don't get to see that often. So this is a part of this collection. You get NES versions of games, Famicom versions of games, you got arcade versions.
Yep.
It's a cool experience. You might find something in there that you never knew about. And in many cases, you're going to play some games that are just going to completely blow your mind at how weird they were for the time. But again, we think this really does belong on the list.
And we gotta say as well, there are games that come on the cart, but there's also DLC as well.
Yeah.
That I guess initially wasn't supposed to come out, but they wound up getting the rights to those games.
It's free.
Yeah.
You just download it.
Just download them.
It's basically this really cool collection. And you know what, folks? If you do like arcade games from the past, this is definitely one you shouldn't miss.
Number 4.
Atari Flashback Collection. Now, we have seen this collection get released in a bunch of different states. On the PC, there was an Atari collection called Atari Vault. On the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, we saw the Atari Flashback.
It's various compilations.
Yeah.
So it's been a little bit messy, the compilation history, but this one seems to be a very good sort of collision of many of those collections.
Honestly, in my opinion, Atari Flashback Collection on the Switch, specifically on the Switch, is the best version of this collection that has happened. Now, to understand why this is so important, there have been a lot of re-releases of Atari games over the years, and this one specifically was being done by Code Mystics. Now, these folks are amazing at like capturing what those original games are supposed to play like and bring them to consoles. Now, there are 150 games in this collection. That sounds like a lot. A whole bunch of them are going to be Atari 2600 games. Now, there are people out there that like Atari 2600 games. I like a couple.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I dislike them all.
Let's say this. The people that love the 2600 or even the 5200, because some of those games are on there as well, they're going to really love this compilation.
Yeah.
If you're not into those 80s console games, it's like, it is 8-bit, I guess, technically, but it doesn't quite feel like it's up to the standard of NES. You might not dig this if you're not into the 2600 era of games.
Yeah, there's like a lot of games there.
Yeah.
You got plenty of options, different ways to see the games. Something that they did too was, if you've ever played really old Atari 2600 games, sometimes the games would flicker. And when we emulate that on modern systems, that flicker kind of screws up a bit, because what would happen is you have all these sprites on the screen, but the Atari wasn't capable of running them all, so it would just flicker all the sprites all over the screen.
Pac-Man was notorious.
Yeah. When you would play that on a real CRT screen, the flicker would have a ghosting image, so it basically kind of it would still flicker a bit, but it would look like it was stable the entire time. Now, with emulation, they're capable of actually emulating that ghosting, so you basically get that in there, and there's a way to correct it. So they've done that with this. You have the ability to turn it off or turn it on, but it's all there. There's a whole bunch of other options that they've done as well, so that's really cool. But what makes this collection so important isn't the Atari 2600 games. It's the arcade classic games they have on here.
Yeah.
Now, there are a bunch of arcade games that were pixel-based, and they're neat in their own ways. Many of them are in black and white. I don't think there's going to be a lot of fans of those specifically.
Well, I mean, you do have good pixel games like Crystal Castles, Centipede, of course. Yeah.
And a lot of those games there are really fun to play with the joysticks and the controls and stuff as well. But what's really cool about this collection, and it's so awesome, why I think it's worth playing it on the Switch, is that you also get touchscreen controls as well too. Now this matters because a game like Crystal Castles, that game was played with a roller ball or a trackball. So when you use that with a touchscreen, it kind of gives you a bit more control than you would with a joystick. It's not exactly like it was originally in arcades, but you're getting something that I believe is far more accurate to the original experience. And that's what this is about. You can play it in so many different ways, just the way it looks on the screen. And there's certain games that you can actually just hold it in handheld mode and kind of have it vertical on the screen, and it's great. Like you get a much higher resolution,
especially
of the game.
Games with vertical monitors like Centipede, for example. You need that to an extent, right? You don't want to go horizontal with a game like that. So having the touch and the vertical screen is very cool.
And what's really cool is some of these games that were for like 7 or 240p or whatever it is, whatever the original resolutions of the games were, a 720p screen on the Switch is essentially the best option you have there, because 1080p they have to rescale things and it usually doesn't work. But even then, on a high definition screen, if you were to play this on a regular big TV, you get a pretty high resolution from that, and they managed to do a good job. What's so cool about this collection, though, if you are going to play this is the reason to do this. There are vector-based games on here. I'm talking Tempest. I'm talking Major Havoc, which, by the way, one of the coolest Atari games they had ever released. And even if you don't know Atari and you think their games are really simple, there is some really amazing gameplay to be had in these releases. If you are going to play it, they've given you tons of different options to kind of reproduce that vector screen glow.
I was very surprised because we were going through it and we were talking about how the vectors, vector graphics have not been done justice really through emulation or porting the games over. You can actually vary the amount of glow that each line has, to an extent where we were like, oh, that's too much, that's too little, and then we found a sweet spot where we're like, okay, this is looking. It still doesn't feel exactly like there's that physical glow that you can't quite reproduce.
A vector screen has a specific look to it, folks. If you've never seen one, it's basically like looking at an HDR screen. It's like this bright color and bright line.
There was a console that specifically had a vector screen, the Vectrex, and it feels very warm and interesting. If you ever have a chance to see one of those, you can see what it's really like.
But what's so cool about this is that many of the vector games I've played in the past kind of have, I just want to say, like, they usually have a little bit of aliasing artifacts. Like, you can actually see the line kind of shifting, like it's a staircase as it's going up. With this collection, you simply don't see that. The quality is so high, the anti-aliasing is so good. This really is one of the best ways to play these games. And honestly, if you've never played Atari's amazing vector-based games in the past, this is the way to do it. It's a huge collection. There's tons to play. Even if you don't want to get it for the Atari 2600 games, there is a handful of just really good arcade games that, honestly, this stands out. And no matter what Atari collection you find out there, the best one that exists specifically is on the Switch.
Number 3.
Mega Man X Legacy Collection 1+2.
Oh, I am a big fan of Mega Man. I love the Mega Man games. I grew up playing a lot more Mega Man X than I did the Mega Man proper. Mega Man X Legacy Collection 1 and 2 is a fantastic compilation of games. I like the PS4 version of the game the most because, I physically collect games. The PS4 version of 1+2 comes with 2 discs. They managed to get all the collection physically on those 2 discs.
So this is important because every other version of this game that came out doesn't have everything, right?
That's right, like the Switch version, for example, you get only the first 4 titles, I believe, on the card itself, and then you have to download the other 4.
So, like, if you're a collectivist, a collector of games, right, and you're looking to get something in your archives that you're never going to have to worry about in the future of being out of date, this is basically the one you want to get. Every other version doesn't have this.
So, the Switch is great, and actually most of the compilations we're talking about today, we want to say get them on the Switch, but for this one specifically, maybe not so much, if you're a collector at least. Mega Man X Legacy Collection, this is... It's a wonderfully done compilation. Has all the great museum stuff that we've seen from Digital Eclipse. Digital Eclipse also worked on the SNK 40th Anniversary Collection, and they did a fantastic job with that as well. In the museum, of course, you have your pre-production stuff. You have art assets. It's great to see kind of the workings of building up to the final releases of the X games. These games have held up extremely well, so having a compilation of them, especially the first 4 games, it's great to dive back in. They've also included things like a boss rush mode, which it's never been done before with a Mega Man X compilation. We have had compilations of the X games in the past on the GameCube and PS2, but this boss rush mode is very interesting because not only are you fighting the bosses, but it's like 2 versus 1, so you have to kind of figure things out, because in Mega Man games you have weapons that are more powerful against certain enemies, fire and ice and things like that. Here you could be fighting 2 enemies that you gotta kind of you got to be more strategic with how you go about knocking those enemies out.
See, I always love that. I love when they take older games and have like a way to play them in a different way on these compilation sets or re-releases and stuff like that. And it's adding more gameplay to the stuff you already wanted anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So not only do we have that, but we have like different modes. Mega Man games tend to be a bit hard, so there's a mode that people can dive in a little bit easier. And yeah, you can't really unlock achievements that way, but you can go through and basically you can't die, right? So it's good for beginner Mega Man fans. There's unlockables, like unlockable borders and different things. It is perfect for anyone that wants to jump into the series for the first time now, or if you're a big fan like myself of the Mega Man X games and just playing through them once again. A lot of great bang for your buck here. Yeah.
Number 2.
Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection.
Now, we picked this one up on the Switch, but we gotta be honest, if this ever comes out for any other platform outside of PlayStation 4 or anything like that, we would still recommend it on the Switch, simply because, well, on the Switch, you've got 2 controllers built in, and basically it means that you can play this multiplayer anywhere you go.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And just having the games on the go is really awesome. The Switch had another release of Street Fighter 2 early on.
Yes.
Just after the Switch was released, Capcom was testing the waters there. I feel like that Ultra HD version of Street Fighter 2 can be tossed out the window.
It's still cool.
It's cool.
It's not
cool.
in this collection.
It's not in this collection.
Yeah.
Not necessary. Not necessary, okay? You get Street Fighter 2, you get a few versions of Street Fighter 2. You have like 12 games on here spanning the original Street Fighter, the one no one ever sees or plays or talks about.
It never gets released anywhere. There's a reason, but
because it doesn't play that great. But there's some history there. There's some characters that move on to the other games as well. But it's wonderful to see the whole breadth of kind of like 2D Street Fighter, the old school 2D Street Fighter, all the way up to Street Fighter 3 Third Strike.
Yes.
Yeah.
And honestly, folks, these games just look so good. I know that, aside from Street Fighter 1, I know that they can be a little bit older for some, but when you take a look at the care and time they put into this, and here's the fun thing too, have you ever wanted to play a Street Fighter game, anything, let's just even say this, let's say you're emulating this off some MAME cabinet or something like that, and you got your friends over, you want to play it, you want to quickly just set up a 2-player match. Well, with the arcade versions, you got to figure out how to put in the multiple quarters, set up all that stuff. But with the Switch release, what they've done is they've given you the ability to just get straight to the multiplayer section, pick your characters right away, and choose what stage you want to be on. Right. And you've got so many options and so many ways to set it up. They've gone out of their way to make this collection better than the arcade releases, which is something you traditionally don't see.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have that customization, to just be able to sit down and say, like, I want this stage, I want this character versus this character with these options. It's beautiful. There's also, you may be seeing a theme here, in a lot of these great compilations, you see a lot of the history of the game, and they have that here as well. A lot of cool artwork. It's neat to see kind of what these characters looked like before the final versions of the characters.
And you can actually see some of the artwork for the original Street Fighter arcade cabinet in there, like some of the old concepts.
Yeah.
And the original Street Fighter arcade cabinet, the first one, it wasn't joysticks and buttons, it was punching bags or balloons or something.
It was pads. There's a bit of history there, I guess, when they were testing that, and the harder you punch these pads, there's like a punch and a kick, the like it would be a heavy kick or a heavy punch or a light kick and light punch depending on the pressure you applied. I guess when they were first integrating these control schemes into it, the pads were getting messed up.
Yeah,
so
I would have to imagine.
Yeah. No, we have to redo this. So it's fun to look at these sorts of things. There's a lot of knowledge to be had there. If you love Street Fighter 2 or any of the 2D Street Fighter games, this is a no-brainer. So for me, I grew up with Street Fighter 2. I didn't get to play as much Street Fighter 3, so seeing like Third Strike and the other 2 versions of the game here in this compilation, it's like, well, dude, not only can I go back and relive some of the great things that I love about the original games, but I can finally kind of fill in that gap in my like playing history with Street Fighter.
Bottom line, if you are a massive fan of Street Fighter, this is a must-have.
Yeah.
This is the first time I think we've ever seen all of the arcade originals get ported in such a high-quality state.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not getting any ports on here, right? You're getting the original arcade ROMs that have been fixed and just refined.
We do have to say, though, multiplayer online has been known to be a little bit bumpy, and you don't have online multiplayer with every single version of the game. There's like some key versions of each iteration generation. So there's like one from Street Fighter 2, one from Street Fighter 3, and I think Alpha 3 is multiplayer as well. So not all of them are online multiplayer. If you're into a lot of couch co-op multiplayer and not so much into online multiplayer, like myself, yeah, this is perfect.
Yeah, and heck, if your friends aren't beside you on your couch, if you get it on the Switch, take it with you to their house.
Yeah,
that's why.
Or go to the bar and be like, "Hey, what's going on, man?" Like, take that.
Take it out. Yeah.
You know, maybe flirt with someone. Hey, cutie, what's going on? Here's Street Fighter.
I guess if you want to. Look, folks, we think it's the best way to get the game, and honestly, there are 6 buttons on the Nintendo Switch controllers, so there's more than enough to play Street Fighter, and I think because of that...
Do you think they're going to integrate the punch pad into the touchscreen?
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
Number 1.
Sega Genesis Classics on the Switch. Now, we're specifically, again, talking about the Switch release here, because while this collection has come out in various other forms on different systems...
It came out on the PC and PS4 months before the Switch version, but the Switch version came out and it grabbed us. Why? Why is that?
Well, it's because it's probably the best way to get this. Now, there's a reason. The Switch release is portable. Every other release isn't. Yeah. I know that probably doesn't sound like that big
You don't bring
deal.
your HD TV and your PS4 everywhere with you? Like me?
No.
On a backpack.
If you want to play these games properly at a fixed resolution, you're probably only going to be playing it at 720p anyway. Although the games can run at 1080, sometimes 720, like we said,
720
it's the proper resolution.
It scales everything properly, pixels properly.
So the screen looks great. Now, what I love about this is I've wanted to play my Genesis games on the go for a very long time, and the best way to do that...
Nomad?
Yeah, right. It's been a couple of years. If not the Nomad, maybe you're emulating it on your phone or something like that. But this gives you the physical controls. And, and again, just like we talked about with Street Fighter, you can take the controls out from the left and right and just start playing it that way too.
Where the collections, some Genesis collections, there's been a lot of them, let's be honest. They've come out on consoles like the PSP. You still don't have that sort of like immediate, hey, let's do this together, let's play a match of, whatever. You just take a controller and you're in it.
Now, why did this collection get to the top? Now, it doesn't have a museum section with like artwork and stuff like that. We didn't get that.
It's not quite as in-depth as some of the Digital Eclipse games. They really seem to be weighing heavily into that. But this... it does a couple cool things. It does several cool things, right? First, you have a fully rendered out 90s style bedroom.
Yeah.
A kid's bedroom.
Like in like a 3D model that you can actually look around and stuff like that. It's really weird, but that's what they've done. Yeah,
so that's a cool way of playing the games, because when you do select your game, you see the cartridge go right into the Sega Genesis. There's a bit of nostalgia to be had there. But I think that like one of the main driving forces behind like loving this game, wanting to pick this up, is the collection itself. There are so many awesome games on this. And then we take into consideration what you said. You're playing this, at home, or you can play it on the go. A lot of games really, they do well on the go. RPG titles that are rare, harder to find, or more expensive, like the Shining games, Shining Forces, Shining in the Darkness. It's great to have those games on here. I mean, like, what are some of the things that grab you on the collection?
Well, first off, one of my negatives about this is you're not getting Sonic the Hedgehog 3, you're not getting Sonic and Knuckles.
We've heard rights issue things about that.
But you're getting Sonic 1, you're getting Sonic 2, you're getting Sonic Spinball, which I know not a lot of people like, but it was a favorite for me. You're getting Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, which is essentially just Puyo Puyo. You get Columns, you get just so many neat RPGs, so many really cool games.
I would say that where other compilations that we spoke about today may lean a little heavier into like, it's fighting games, or it's all Mega Man X games. This is like... You like a certain style of game, they have it there for you. Streets of Rage.
Yes.
We have all the Streets of Rage games from the Genesis on this.
And you also have the ability to switch out regions as well, too. So if you want to play a game from a different region, you can. It's not available for every single game out there, but there's quite a few there that you can choose.
Speaking of regions, there's some games that we didn't even get in North America. Alien Soldier, it came to North America, I guess, on the Sega channel, but like 1% of people that owned a Genesis actually had a chance to play that. So it's wonderful to be able to have that physically on the disc itself.
And you know what? Some of the games that are...
The cart,
yeah. And some of the actual games that are available on here, too, if they weren't even available in this region, they might be very hard to come by. And you can get these here for a lot cheaper.
Exactly.
Which I think is
like I said, those RPGs, Monster World is on here as well. I love the Monster World games. And that's getting a little more pricey.
Now, there is online multiplayer on here, but I tried it and... It doesn't work all that great. It is probably one of the... the fact that it's number one is going to be shocking when I say this. It's probably the worst online experience I've ever had. Could it be because of the Switch? Could it be because of how they make this work? It doesn't matter. The Switch, for me, has never had the best online experience. But in this instance, I don't really want to play these games online. I want to play them by myself. Yeah. And you can play them with friends if you want, with like the controllers pulling out to the sides and stuff. But... this isn't, for me, a multiplayer, like, online thing. These
games came out before multiplayer online was a thing. So I don't think a lot of people that grew up with the games that are in this collection, they're not going to miss not having online multiplayer so much.
To a degree. There might be people out there that might have had, I think it was called X Input, or whatever it was called. Not X Input. Channel X. There was this online thing, X-Band, that's what it was called. X-Band was a way to actually play your Sega Genesis games online through a phone line with your friends by just having the secondary port plugged up and all that stuff.
If Shane doesn't immediately remember the name, we know about how popular it was. Yeah. Shane usually remembers these things.
So there might be like 5 of you out there that remember that, and like, now you can do that again. If you really wanted to, the ability's there. I'm just saying it's not that great.
So the multiplayer's not that great, but there were other things that you really loved, and I really loved about it.
This was so cool. Now, you get tons of emulation options. You get scanline, the ability to change the pixels from hard to soft, and a whole bunch of other things there. You also have the ability to warp the TV monitor so that you get that original warp screen.
The CRTV kind of bubbled out screen.
Right? So you can get that on there. You can look, you can change the border settings from literally being a TV to just colorful sides. You can also use that, I think it's called Wave or whatever. It's basically that 1980s, 1990s like thing you'd see on like drinking cups all the time. It's hilarious.
Yeah, is it solo
cups? That's what it is. So you get all these abilities, you get all these like little things you can do. But what makes this so cool is that you have save states that you can drop and load at any given moment. But you also have the ability, they have like a bunch of challenges, and
they're called feats.
Feats, and they load up certain things. You can load up a certain challenge. For instance, one of them is completing the first level of Sonic the Hedgehog in mirror mode in under like a certain time limit. And you can do these things, and they're actually really fun to do.
And actually, there's a mirror mode integration for almost every title on this compilation.
And there's so many other feats that you can do, but because the Switch doesn't have achievements, and I know folks out there really like achievements, they've got achievements built into the game so that you can still achieve things. This is really a whole collection of awesome stuff that they've done. I have played this collection on multiple different systems, but in my opinion, the Switch really is the best way to play this.
Yeah, that's true. I have the PS4 version. I bought it when it first came out, and now I'm like, oh, well, I want the Switch version. Because I like those RPGs, I'm telling you, if you haven't played even just the Shining games alone, or if you missed out on Phantasy Star, dude, being able to grab that from your home console, bring it with you on the go, on the bus, those games are perfect for on-the-go play.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. In fact, many of the compilations we're talking about, if they're available on the Switch, sometimes for us, when we think about these compilations, we think that you need to get the highest resolution, the best look, but many of these games are so old, they look great on just a 720p screen or even a 1080p screen, and the system seems to be running all of these games really, really well. So you don't need that super expensive system, but now you get it portably. I think these compilations are great looks into what Nintendo could be doing for their own stuff.
It's important that we do talk about Nintendo, because 4 of these 5 compilations we're telling you to pick up on the Switch.
Yeah.
The Switch is becoming a great platform for, compilation games, indie games, and many other things. The only one that we kind of removed from that, of course, was the Mega Man X Legacy 1 and 2 collection, because physical media, man.
But you know what, folks? These collections are fantastic. You can spend a small amount of money and get yourself tons and tons of games, completely just stacking up the Switch library you've got with a whole bunch of classic games that are just so worth playing. And for many cases, these might be the first time that many of these games have become portable, which is just unheard of.
Right, and many of these games are exclusive to the Switch, like the Atari, that version of the Atari collection, or the SNK 40th Anniversary collection. So.
Hands down, though, folks, if you are a fan of these games and you've always been worried about picking up compilations in the past because they've never been really created that well, style, you don't have to worry with any of these collections here. They've done a great job taking the games from the past and not remastering them, but keeping them solid so that they just work as well as they used to.
Yeah, 2018 was an incredible year for compilations all around. What do you guys think? What do you think about our list? What are some of the compilations that are possibly missing from our list?
And are there any games from these compilations you would have liked to see included in them? Let us know what you wanted to see and which one you want to pick up.